Welcome back guys to another video, and in this video we're going to cover all things regarding Warrnambool. Now for those of you who don't know where Warrnambool is, it's about 3 hours away from Melbourne CBD, so it's not that far at all. It's actually relatively close to Melbourne, and it is a very nice coastal town with great potential, and now we're seeing prices move in this location, and it's something that I thought I would share with you guys. Now realistically, the budget that you're going to need for Warrnambool is around that 600 to 700k mark. Yes, you can find properties a bit less than that price point. However, they will fall under public housing or might not be the best quality. So I just want to set your expectations right for this video. And now, like all things, I will go through the data first. And you can see the median buy price is around 600,000. 4x2s are fetching a little bit more, around 650 to 700. And you can get yields of about 5% or more. And I will show an example. So both from a cash flow perspective and from a numbers perspective, it's already looking pretty decent. And when we look into this location, we can see that prices did flatline and go through a small downtrend over the past 3 years, but now we are starting to see that prices are going up. In the past quarter, we've had about 0.3% growth, and I expect as the months go on, we will see more positive data as well. Now, rents have been rising, but not significantly. We've only had about 1.3% increase, which isn't great, but it's something you may wish to look to trade off to find a location with capital growth. And when you start to scroll down and you look at the socioeconomics, it's looking very positive. A 4 ersatz score plus a low rented to owner occupier ratio around that 30% mark, which means it's a friendly owner occupier driven location. And when we look at the affordability index, we can see it's sitting at 30 years, which means it's extremely affordable for local residents. And that means there's room for prices to actually grow. And when we start to scroll down and we look at the supply and demand metrics of it, it doesn't immediately strike you as looking amazing, because when you compare it to other suburbs like Corio and Geelong, the downtrend of stock on market is a lot steeper. However, with feedback from agents on the ground and other investors I've talked to, Warrnambool has seriously picked up over the last couple of months, with a lot of the stock going off market, and I expect the stock levels to have a much better trend over the next 3 to 6 months, and demand is also starting to pick up, so I expect that to look a lot better as well. It is still very early days in Warrnambool, but it is a location that should be on your radar if you guys are looking for cooler markets to choose. And we can see vacancy rates is about 1.89%. It has been increasing, but it's also not too bad. It's still below the 2% threshold that I like, so you may wish to trade that off. And just before I go any further, guys, if you have not already, make sure you jump into the private community. We have over 350 members helping each other out every single day, supporting each person out on their journey, picking the right locations, looking at the right type of assets, and making sure that they are making the right decision that suits their strategy. Remember, it's not a one size fits all. You need to align your strategy and the location you choose to invest into with your own personal goals and risk tolerances. And if you need extra mentorship, one-to-one guidance, deal vetting, access to the suburb watch list and weekly community calls, and more, then you need to be part of the private community. It's an absolute no-brainer at $35 a month. If you are buying a $500,000 to $1 million asset, you want to be making that investment in some education and some mentorship and some guidance, right? We are the most affordable property education network out there. There is no one better than us. I guarantee you it. So make sure you jump in and let's get straight back into the video. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is obviously Warrnambool's economy, because its economy is what underpins its future outlook and what it's producing and how long we can hold an asset in that location for. And so when we look at the location's employment, we can see it's mainly diversified into healthcare, retail trade, education training, construction, and more, with no sector taking up more than 25%. Yes, the largest employer is healthcare with 23%, but it's one of the more safer industries to be dominating a certain area or pocket. And hence, I still find Warrnambool a fairly diversified regional location, and it's not a one-trick pony town like, a mining town in far north Queensland, for example. It has been fairly stable. In fact, when you also look at the long-term historical data of Warrnambool, it has never gone through any major cyclical downturns. It has been a fairly consistent performer since 2007 until the COVID boom, where everything went up and then it stagnated for a considerable amount of time, along with the rest of Victoria. So overall, it is pretty diversified, but it's also good to double check the exports or what the location is producing. And what we can see is that it is is mainly diversified into manufacturing, as well as healthcare, construction, electricity, gas, and water services, as well as retail trade. And so once again, it's not concentrated on a specific export like agriculture or mining or electricity, gas. It is fairly diversified, which is great to see in a location, especially in a smaller location, right? Because when you look at the summary of this location, it's home to about less than 40,000 people, which isn't a big regional location, yet it is still fairly diversified with a decent economic output of about $6 billion. So it is a fairly healthy economy, and it is a location that I would look to potentially hold longer term in as well. Now, Warrnambool does have a multitude of major projects that are happening in its local vicinity. And so when you go and start to have a bit of research into the area, you can see that they are having a base hospital redevelopment, which is currently underway and valued at almost $400 million. And this project is expected to be completed in 2027, bringing in more jobs, more workers, more healthcare staff, which is only going to continue to drive the economy. So that's a great regional project that is happening at the moment. There are some other projects as well that are happening, including the Warrnambool line upgrade valued at around $510 million, which you can also go have a read about, with 2.2 new kilometers of track being installed into the area and up to its stage 2 project as well. And currently Warrnambool line upgrade stage 2 is underway. Now there are some more speculative projects happening in and around the location as well. When you start to zoom out, you can see that there is a Spinex offshore wind farm which is under detailed planning. Of course, these are extremely early stages, so I wouldn't make any financial decisions based off a planning project. And you can see other, wind farms, other battery farms happening nearby the location as well, which could help in turn drive the economy in Warrnambool. So overall, it's got a fairly diversified economy. It's got a couple of major projects happening in and around the local area, apart from its normal council projects. It has good data. It is starting to grow in value. So what's an example of a property that you could be looking at? And I've got this example here, 8 Nyla Crescent in Warrnambool, a 4x2x2 on 762 square meters of land. So quite a generous piece of land. It's been sold for $625,000 on the 29th of August of 2025. It might be a couple of months since I released this video, as I do my videos a little bit earlier in general. And when you look at this property, it's a very nice brick home, maybe brick veneer, got a decent interior, not too dated, but not too new as well, which means there's great potential for a cosmetic uplift down the line. Average carpets, nothing special, but nothing terrible either. It's just a great home. I don't like the pink walls, but overall, it's just a great, nice asset that you could purchase and hold on to for a very long time. So when you put the numbers in, at $625,000 at a 20% deposit, it's about 160 odd grand you need cash wise, and at 12% deposit, it's about $110,000. Now, when you look at the expected rental return, you can get about $625 to $650 from what I have seen for a property like this, a 4x2, which will net you about 5.2% in terms of the yield. So when you're reaching above 5% yields in Victoria, that's a really good deal in today's economy, especially in Victoria. In Melbourne CBD, we're talking about yields of 3 to 4%. And in regional Victoria, when we're hitting 5%, that's a good sign. And it's also what I come to expect of smaller regional locations. And so what that means is net per year, you're about negative $12,000 per year and about a negative $1,000 every month or so. And after tax, it's a lot better, around negative $8K, negative $600. And something like this could be a great asset you could hold in the short term for the next cycle and then hold longer term as well, and it should do pretty well. And to make sure I set your expectations right, the location is quite hot, so you're not going to find many listings on realestate.com or domain.com. It's really important to build relationships with agents, make sure you're contacting them on a daily basis to make sure you can find the right asset for you. And it's like I said, if you're not having $600,000 budget or so, it can be difficult to find a property in this location, because as you can see, I've gone through multiple listings and nothing is below 600. Even this 3x1 in Warrnambool is 620 to 680. So it's really important to have your expectations set right if you intend to purchase in this location. And when you're at the 600K budget, you do have other locations throughout Australia which you could consider as well. So it's really important you do not make decisions in isolation, but compare it suburb against another suburb to make sure you're making the best possible decision that fits your investment criteria, your strategy, and your risk tolerance. insurances. Now, nothing does come without its risks, so you have to make sure when you do purchase in Warrnambool. Now, there are some parts which do fall under a floodway overlay or a land subject to inundation overlay. So if you do find a property that is under that overlay, make sure you double check insurance premiums. Make sure you also double check with the property manager to ensure that there hasn't been any history of flooding on that property or near that street, to make sure you have the best chances to find a flood-free asset. It's also important to note that on the outer parts of Warrnambool, it could be covered under a bushfire overlay. So once again, double check the insurance premiums to make sure you aren't paying ridiculous amounts of money for insurances, because that will eat away at your yields, which is not good. Now, the other thing I have noticed with Warrnambool in general is that everything is basically subject to an Aboriginal cultural heritage zone, as you can see here. Now, this could have impacts if you plan to subdivide, develop on your land or your property because of this overlay. Now, that could mean you might need additional permits or an extra cost to actually get those permits through to get a house developed or a subdivision done on the piece of land. It's important to double check any caveats on the property as well when you get your Section 32. But this is something to be aware of if you are deciding to purchase in Warrnambool. All that said, I have seen properties being subdivided in Warrnambool, so I think it's definitely possible. There just might be some additional cost. So just want you to be aware of that, guys. Now, there are also some specific housing commission pockets you do want to be staying away from. Around this pocket here, close to William Street, on Crawley Street, around Hopetoun Street, I can't remember the name of it. And then you can also scroll down and you can also see just close to the highway. And again, this housing commission pocket that you generally want to be staying away from around McGregor's Road rather. And in general, what I found after talking to some investors and some property managers, generally south of the highway or the main highway are the more desirable pockets of Warrnambool, which will have the more expensive properties as well. So it's something to be aware of. Again, when you're purchasing an investment property in any regional area, you really want to be double checking, is there any public housing commission pockets around your property, because you don't want to be buying near that, because it will make your property less desirable for future owner occupiers to be purchasing your property, and investors for that fact. And there is just one last thing I want to be talking about, and that is the East of Aberline project or new housing project that is coming into the location. This project is approximately 5,000 new homes to accommodate a population of more than 15,000 people into this area. This area will also provide community facilities, local parks, and potentially new schools. So there is a number of new houses coming around this specific pocket of Warrnambool, which can affect prices long term if housing demand is not met. However, in the short term, houses can't be built that fast, as they usually take 12 to 18 months to even come into a full dwelling that can be lived in. So we will see some good short-term growth. Long-term growth can be uncertain, but I must say this is also the case with a lot of regional locations across Victoria, especially the big ones like Bendigo, Ballarat, Shepparton, Latrobe. They all have decent housing size projects similar to this happening in those areas as well. So again, once again, it is relative. You need to make sure you're comparing a location to another location to ensure it is being assessed accurately. But overall, I must say Warrnambool is a decent location. It is a bit more of a premium location at a higher price point, but nonetheless, we will see house prices grow into this area in the next 12 months, I believe, from the way that it is acting on the ground and where prices are moving, and the fact that a lot of them are off market now. I expect prices to increase in the short term. And if you have any questions at all, jump into the private community. That is what we are here for. We have been talking about this location for several months now. Our members have already been buying in this area. They've already made the right decisions. And if you need any help at all, jump in. We will help you out. Till next time, thank you very much.